What's going on, everybody? It's my show with Scott Kosek. I am, of course, Scott Kosek. I thank you kindly for joining me on my show this evening. Tonight is January 18th, 2026. By the end of the night tonight, we will know who is playing in the AFC and NFC championships. I know that Seattle won yesterday. So did Denver, although they lost their quarterback. No Bo Nix in the mix for the AFC championship. I'd like to give a shout out to Kareem Ellis. Once again, I appreciate the beat. Kareem Ellis goes by the silent stepchild in his production capabilities. He also has a necktie company. If you need a fashionable necktie, check him out, the Ellis Tie Company. Happy that the days are getting longer. The sun is lasting longer. Pitchers and catchers report to spring training on February 10th. That is always like a clear sign that spring is right around the corner to me. That's less than a month away. All in all, not a terrible winter so far. I hope to remain that. I hope that I don't believe in jinxes or curses, so I think that you can talk about the weather without conjuring it up, unless you happen to work for HARP or maybe even NASA or somebody, then maybe you can conjure up. You know, there's advertisements in Great Britain that you can have a rain-free wedding day for $80,000. I saw that on a reel the other day, and I thought, oh, but we're not manipulating weather at all, right? All right. So, listen, if you know me, if you are related to me, if you're a previous coworker, if you're one of my customers, if you've ever were in school with me, if you were one of my classmates, or maybe even one of my students during my time of substitute teaching, whatever. If you know me just barely or a lot, I ask that you please listen to everything that I have to say on this show tonight. Not because I'm trying to trick you into watching the whole show, but I know, like, if you just listen to part of what I have to say, you may get a little bit frustrated and mad and upset, because I am coming at all of us in this show tonight. Tonight, I want to talk about the Hegelian dialectic, the left-right paradigm, and the illusion of choice. So where do I begin with all that? Well, first of all, I begin right here with wearing this hat. I chose to wear this hat tonight because I truly believe in and love America. And I'm not trying to be some we're exceptionalists and, you know, the whole world is better off because America existed, and discount all of the things that go with some backgrounds of everybody and everything that things were based off of. Not trying to do that at all. I just know that I grew up in a place where people know one another on a personal basis. They have active interest and investment into people's lives, people's livelihoods, people's past, present, and future. And so I know going around everywhere, things look kind of weird and bleak. And I know that I've mentioned that a bunch of times on the show. And I know a lot of the different shows that I've had so far, I'm talking about things that are pretty complex and of a weightiness. But I'm trying to do this because I think that we are all being played. And that's exactly what I want to talk about tonight. So what in the world is the Hegelian dialectic? Well, there was this guy back in the day. He was a German philosopher. He was born in August of 1770. He died in 1831. His name was, George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. So George Billy Freddie Hegel. His main philosophy centers on this idea of absolute idealism. I'm not trying to get off into some crazy. I know that my books over there might suggest that I have this crazy affection for philosophy and such, but I really don't. So absolute idealism, what in the world is that? It suggests that reality, like everything, reality is a single, self-conscious, rational mind or spirit, where all things, including human thought, the physical world, those are all interconnected moments within this absolute. And those moments can best be described as being resolved through this dialectical process. And the way that most people break this down is thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And so what in the world does that mean? Well, first of all, let me say that I can't say which philosophical camp I subscribe to, mostly because I don't study philosophy. I know that I have some books that suggest things that are of philosophic nature, but I'm not that guy. I'm way too black and white minded to be about philosophy. But I can tell you that I definitely do not subscribe to absolute idealism, but the explanation of why these things happen a certain way tend to make sense. So if I'm in here and I'm hot, that could be a thesis. I'm hot. I open the window. That's the antithesis. That's like a reaction to the thing. And then I'm cooler. That would be synthesis. That's a very reduced, simplistic way to really explain the idea of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. There's definitely varying examples of that. Like if my window didn't have a screen in it, along with getting cooled off, I'd also be itchy because of the mosquitoes. Well, not right now because it's like 20 degrees. It's actually colder than it's 15 degrees outside in the warm and balmy Wintersville, Ohio. You can even put into that this idea, like a concept of identity. And I'm just kind of putting this here as a little thing to tuck aside for a moment till we get to some other things later on. And listen, I'm going to pivot a whole bunch tonight because there's a lot of seemingly immediate turns to take off of where I'm at to get to the next thing. But I promise you, I'm going to tie it all together. But if you have the concept of identity exists as a thesis only because there's already a presupposition of an antithesis, right? So you can't identify yourself unless there are differences that can be observed between you and somebody else. Like, I'm 6'1". I know that some people are 6'5". That is a difference between me and somebody that's 6'5". If we were all 6'1", then there would be no identity of height, because that would not be any kind of a thing that you would realize. So the idea of what is the synthesis of the idea of identity and recognizing differences is this culmination of everybody recognizing this complexity of world. Anyway, moving on. Not trying to get all into the roots and the muck and mire of philosophy. So I just want to introduce this idea so that you can just see this idea of identifying how progression happens, or better, how it might be explained. Instead of using this as a tool of explanation, it's now used as a way to make things happen, right? So, I've talked about the idea of hyperreality and how things look something in some kind of a reference to what it did at some point in time, but it has morphed so much that it is in name only. I think this is one of those things. So instead of using the Hegelian dialectic to then look back at events and things that happened and be able to track how those things went so that you can, track progress and things of how the world goes, we now look at this as like an equation, right? So if you want something to happen, all you got to do is label that as the synthesis. That's the end of the two sides, right? If you have a thesis, and by nature, like an opposite thing naturally presents itself in this geist of the world and existence and absolute that we live in, then you know that there is an antithesis to that. So those things together then give you a result. And so we are now able, you now have large bunches of think tanks all throughout everywhere that are currently going through different issues, trying to reverse engineer outcomes. All right. So if you want something to happen, you can label that as the synthesis, as the what to the right of the equal sign, and then just reverse engineer that, which leads me to this idea of a left-right paradigm. We are tribal. I'm a lifelong fan of the now Las Vegas, previously Oakland, then Los Angeles, then Oakland again, Raiders. Have been from a very young age. Marcus Allen as a rookie, he just dominated, and I found that so cool. I think I was probably 8, I believe, when he was a rookie. They won the Super Bowl that year, I'm pretty sure. And so, like, from a very young age, that was just something that I gravitated towards, was being a Raiders fan. And I really liked that they were kind of like a don't play by the rules, bend but don't necessarily break the rules kind of a team. And that was something that helped me identify with being a follower of the Raiders once upon a time. Along the way, I know that other factors helped to solidify my allegiance, including LA-based gangster rap artists. At that time, it was maybe taboo for them to wear the predominant red or blue that was generally getting worn in and around LA in the late 80s and early 90s. It was a great way for them to stay neutral, so records would still sell regardless of affiliation, right? So just looking back on it now really helps me to understand all this that I'm talking about. If you grew up in the 80s, marketing really leveled up. So the 80s started off as advertisers couldn't really mention the other brand by name. You'd get things that would say something like the leading national brand, when, consumers, not 9 out of 10 doctors recommend, that was all something that you had in the 80s. You couldn't really say the other thing that you were competing against. But by the end of the 80s, man, you could just flat out call out companies. It didn't matter. Like the idea of marketing product to the end user consumer for like these big conglomerate, like too big to fail type of businesses, that went crazy in the 80s and 90s. So you definitely grew up at a time when there was this big competition between Coke and Pepsi. If you grew up watching football like I did, you know that it ultimately always comes down to the representative from the AFC and the representative from the NFC. If you watch baseball like I do, you know that it's represented in the World Series by the team from the American League, the team from the National League. So yeah, you get all of these like choice of brands, choice of allegiances, and they spent a bunch of money. Coke and Pepsi was on just about every other advertising break on any show that you were watching in the 80s or 90s. In the middle of this, we were all getting a steady diet of hyper-American heroism. Our pop culture that we lived through in the 80s, our lived experience. We got Rocky, Rambo, Maverick. We got Indiana Jones, Hulk Hogan, all these different like larger than life rock bands, bigger and bigger shows and tours, celebrity icons, American idols, even those that were from somewhere else. They came here, and through the magic of Hollywood and the American whatever, these people got to rocket to superstardom. Overall, this uber big budget marketing campaign, leaving one to feel like they not only needed the product, but that they felt identity in their choice of brand, right? You were a Pepsi kid or a Coke kid or a Raiders kid or whatever the case might be, a Yankee, like, you know how many people to this day rock New York Yankee stuff? How many of them do it because of certain icons that they looked up to also wearing a Yankee hat? So pivot back to LA rap groups for a minute. At a time when the who and the where they were all rapping about would have all been wearing blue and red, they instead were wearing neutral colors. They were wearing gray and black. And before you give me junk about being a Raiders fan and saying, but they're silver and black, silver does not translate very well to clothing. And so typically whenever you would buy something that would be of Raiders ilk, it would be black and gray. So these guys have black and gray on, two neutral colors, and it made them marketable to any and all neighborhoods in Los Angeles, including especially the suburbs. If you recall on my last show, I talked about BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, and I asked the question, if each of these places hold large shares with voting power of competing companies, are they still really competition? Or do we have the illusion of competition, all while collusion takes place? Illegal, by the way. You cannot share notes with your competitor as to what is going on with whatever. So while this will sound like a big pivot in this episode, it's not, I promise. Have you heard of dynamic pricing, especially as it pertains to supermarkets? Let me ask you a different question. Have you ever signed up for a subscription of something from Amazon, maybe ignored it for a while, and then realized that it had increased significantly? Probably. Have you ever unsubscribed only to find that after it had been not coming to you for a while, it went back down in price, maybe even sometimes lower than it previously was? This is tracking with where they want to go with the idea of dynamic pricing. So stores right now are trying to figure out how to get people to pay more than they did previously for the exact same thing, all to maximize profits as best as they can. So here we go with that maximizing return on investment thing again. Kroger is one of the people that's trying to do this right now. Kroger is actually working with a company so that as you walk through the store, it can assign to you specific pricing for the things that you're picking up and putting in your cart, and remember that pricing all the way till you get to the end without that being the same price for everybody that walks through the store and buys the same things that you do. They want to be able to look at things based off of trends of you, trends of what's taking place locally. And I know that there's some parts of that has been existing in business for a long time. I know typically in the midst of like high demand on something and you have short supply of it, you would definitely have a higher price. The price point would meet at a higher price for that. But this is completely different. This is that I go through the store weekly and buy a box of Cheez-Its. And they know this. I don't, by the way. I used to eat Cheez-Its a long time ago. I quit eating Cheez-Its a long time ago because they gave me really bad heartburn. But at any rate, if I'm somebody that goes into the store every single week and buys a box of Cheez-Its, and they know that they can watch the metric and know that, okay, when it's $1.99, he definitely buys it. $2.99, he definitely buys it. $3.99, he still definitely buys it. $4.99, he absolutely buys it. Where is that price point that Cheez-Its are just out of my comfort zone of what I'm willing to pay for a box of Cheez-Its? Now, say that you are somebody who walks in the store and 90 times out of 90 times, you walk right past that big, annoying orange-red box because you know that you can't eat those because they give you heartburn. They may do the opposite, to be like, oh, Will he pay $3.99? Nope. $2.99? Nope. $1.99? Maybe there's a price floor that we can get to with this guy that will at least put a box of Cheez-Its in his cart today. And then let's see what we can do with that price. See if he's definitely somebody who is like, I am emphatically not a Cheez-Its eater, or is he somebody that we can get on the hook for starting to buy Cheez-Its? But this is at the exact same time. So stores have been installing digital display pricing that can in real time be changed to follow you through the store with your little identifying device, your phone, because all these stores all these stores have had data points on you for the last 30 plus years. They all started the loyalty cards clear back in the 90s. From the 90s until now, they have been tracking how often do you buy Cheez-Its, how often is this particular product in your cart and you can't live without it. They are going to use that as a means to sell to you not what they think is a comfortable thing to make them a comfortable profit, but figure out how to maximize each and every product that you buy to get the maximum amount of money out of you. That's weird. In fact, they want to be able to, like, if you just went with your kid to watch, the latest Pixar movie, and they know that they have a Pixar new movie ice cream flavor that's out, they know that you're going to walk past that end cap with that on there, and they're going to put it at product placement level for a 6-year-old walking past, so they could be like, mommy with the Pixar ice cream. I want the Pixar ice cream. I need the Pixar ice cream. And so that Pixar ice cream is now going to cost you more because they know that you've got a terrorist next to you telling you that you had better buy this Pixar ice cream or there's going to be some significant problems. Yet another seemingly untimely pivot point here, but I promise I'm weaving this all together. Stick with me here. Do you consider yourself to be left or right? Are you sure? If I said to you the federal government is telling you that you had to obey or there would be consequences, what would your reaction be? Would you obey? I asked that specifically that way because if this was 2020 during the midst of the pandemic, you would feel the exact opposite as you do right now in the midst of all of the ICE deployment. Think about what I just said, and think about how I just said that. No matter who you are, no matter if you call yourself left or right, you are right now on the exact opposite side of that argument for those two things in a mere 5-year period of time. This is because of the illusion of choice. There is no choice between left liberalism and right conservatism. It's all a constructed thing. We are instructed how to be based on our particular brand. We are Coke and Pepsi. The powers that be, they wear neutral colors like Raiders gear. The powers that be wear neutral Raiders gear and use and utilize the two variables in the equation to figure out how to get synthesis. It's exactly what gets done on a daily basis. Did you know that the whole left-right moniker was established with the French Revolution? That's where the terms left and right come from. Do you even know like what was the argument between the two? So in 1789, France was broke. Louis XVI, he called a meeting. It was going to be the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners. And the whole idea was that they were going to get together and have a powwow and figure out, basically how to get on the other side of everything being all like broke and bad. And the commoners were basically like, dude, we outnumber you like 1,000 to 1. This has nothing to do with you. It shouldn't have anything to do with you. Peace out. And immediately, France changed. Now, the people so they had a National Assembly, and the people that were at the National Assembly that were all about, all right, let's go, revolution, they sat on the left. The ones who were like, maybe there's not really a need for like something so drastic as a regime change. So we'll sit on the right side of the president, and that's it. It wasn't any of this stuff. It wasn't any of this stuff that we constantly get a diet of. We don't listen. We put it into groups of predetermined views of a wide array of issues: taxes, immigration, foreign policy, defense spending, the environment, our trade policies, the infrastructure, privacy. You get what I'm saying. The facts are political candidates conveniently play each side of these and many other issues that I haven't named, so they can get elected. Once inside, they simply don't represent the supposed brand that they tout. At the end of the day, they don't care about or see blue and red. They see green. And lots of it. Lots and lots and lots of it. If you're sitting believing in the left-right paradigm, then you will quickly look to somebody on the other side of the aisle and point out the hypocrisy of the things that people on your side of the aisle do the exact same thing over. You think that it is two parties arguing about how the discourse of American government should go, but it's not. They're all in cahoots. They're all in cahoots. If you do the research, you'll find a revolving door between industry, lobbyists, and government. All the different government agencies that are tasked with policing all of these industries, the people that come into those agencies all come from the industries. They all worked for the companies that spent bunches and bunches of money to research and develop different products or different terms and conditions that people aren't necessarily privy to. Do you know that there was a period of time not too long ago when a big bunch of the hay harvest, I know specifically in Washington State, but I imagine anywhere, because this all happened right at the same time where I believe it was John Deere. They had just changed the terms and conditions in their thing. And so all these farmers that bought these pieces of equipment that they used to be able to work on, now, as part of the terms and conditions that they were signing to be able to go in debt for, hundreds of thousands of dollars per piece of machinery, they were not allowed by law, by their agreement with these companies, to do the service and maintenance on their equipment on their farm to produce their livelihood. Do you think the people that came up with those terms and conditions give a crap about red or blue, right or left? They don't. They don't. Everything has to make a bigger and better return on investment. And at the end of the day, that is the brand that all of these people represent. So listen, I will say the exact same thing that I said when Charlie Kirk was shot and killed as I will when this lady was shot and killed in Minnesota. It's sad for somebody's parent to leave this earth seemingly untimely. And I know that those two people are complete opposite ends of the spectrum, so to speak, but we are being trained to dehumanize humanity. And so when it's the person that's on the other side from where you supposedly think you sit, you don't care, and they got what they deserved. Why do we do this? Why do we allow macro America to dictate to us how we're going to act and treat one another in our micro Americas? You know how many different people I've seen put like really ignorant stuff on social media over this past year over different things? I know it goes back further than a year, but listen, all the people that you have on your social media, especially if you're on Facebook, those are all called your friends. Do you get the irony? Do you get the just the sheer irony that these are your quote unquote friends and you're going to take them to task over something that at the end of the day doesn't have any real bearing on your micro that you're around and in and involved with all day, every day? You actually see these people. You're actually around these people. You actually know their name. You may even know their kids' names. You might even been invited to birthday parties or graduation parties or weddings or something that these people have had at some point in time. You're being taught to hate people that you're supposed to love. So I feel that my big giant conspiracy theory of what's taking place, what this all leads to, because we're all being trained to hate one another, both left and right, is going to demand a better system where corruption isn't possible. There's been a word for this for a very long time. You can research it back into the early 1900s, and it is the idea of technocracy. To put it in better terms, AI government. We will demand that everybody be held accountable for their actions. But I've got news for you. If, I'm not going to say when, because I hope that it's a not, but if this happens, this is only going to happen to the plebes. If you are somebody who is privileged, if you are somebody that's high and mighty, if you're somebody, if you're somebody with some kind of, listen, I'm very outspoken about the idea of immigration and immigration laws because I know that immigration laws have not changed like my entire life. It is something that gets used and utilized at times of election time so that you can say, I really care about whoever is the target market of the people that supposedly belong to my brand. That's the whole reason why immigration gets used the way that it gets used, one way or the other, no matter what side you're on. But I will say that those laws are not changed on purpose. They are not changed on purpose to where you have people that want to come here legally that are from places like my mom is born and raised in Scotland. I've literally sat and listened to a guy tell me brokenheartedly how he could not leave Scotland and come to America because he is not somebody of any kind of prominence or any kind of anything that has a reason to bring him here, even though he's been here a whole bunch of times and he absolutely loves this place because Scotland has existed for such a long time, and there's so many different people that have come here from Scotland that, sorry folks, we can't take any more people from Scotland. However, if that exact same guy was born and raised in some section of Eastern Bloc nations that at one point in time was part of the Soviet Union that never really became a country until sometime within the last half century, he would be able to come here because there's not this big giant quota of different people that have come from this all of a sudden established country. On top of all that, if you come here and you're somebody that can write a computer program or you can, decrypt certain encryptions or whatever, or if you're somebody who is just really stinking good at some kind of an athletic prowess, then you get to go to the front of the line. That's why I have a problem with immigration. I believe that people should be in this country legally, but you don't make that very possible for a whole bunch of different people who want to be here for all of the right reasons, to be a part of this thing that we are all a part of. You think that this only means what you think it means? It doesn't. So what this ends up with is that the people that demand this AI government system, those are the ones who this is all going to come down crashing on all of our shoulders. What do you think all the data centers are for? Do you really think that they're there to make your childhood picture like come to life and dance? Is that really what they're investing hundreds of billions of dollars in various regions for? Tweak some pictures. They want to know everything about you. They want to know what your health is like, what your friendships are like, what your work is like. Do you go to church? Do you not go to church? Are you somebody with a big circle, a small circle? Do you venture outside of your 15-minute area? Are you somebody that constantly goes to and fro? All of that stuff is going to be used and utilized against everybody in the AI government system that they want to implement. That is also what is known as technocracy. For all of my Trump fan friends, please beware of all the different people that he has affiliated himself with in this second term. and take a look at all of the different things that those guys are doing. Anyway, that's all I got for you this evening. Listen, get up tomorrow, go where you go, and be involved in the sphere of influence that you have. Stop tearing one another down about stuff that really doesn't have any bearing on your personal relationship with somebody who is essentially your neighbor. Until next time, peace.